my heart, crying in the sand, all night long crying with a mournful cry. As I lie and listen and cannot understand the voice of my heart at my side of the voice of the sea, oh water crying for rise, is it I, is it I? All night long the water is crying to me. Between me and the other world, there is ever an unasked question, unasked by some through feelings of delicacy, by others through the difficulty of rightly framing it. All nevertheless flutter round the question. They approach me in a half-hesitant sort of way, eye me curiously or compassionately. And then instead of saying directly, how does it feel to be a problem? They say, I know an excellent colored man in my town. Do not these southern outrages make your blood boil? At these I smile or am interested or reduce the boiling to a simmer as the occasion may require. But to the real question, how does it feel to be a problem? I answer seldom a word. Orientation, have the same direction, have the same perspective, have the same vision, have the same analysis. Even in Harvard, I recall sitting in class and being the only person of African descent. Anytime issues of race arose, they all look at me and say, yes, how do black people actually think about it? I don't know, I tell you how this one thinks. I haven't given you the whole-scale empirical investigation as to how the multiplicity of all the different intelligences and talents in the black community actually come to one major unanimous consensus. No such thing. Prevail? How can they sustain some sense of hope given the fact that they are cast as a problem people? Dubois goes on to say, he says, you know, he says, being a problem is a strange experience. Peculiar even for one who has never been anything else save perhaps in babyhood. Thank you so very much. Except perhaps in babyhood, just when one is old enough to acknowledge the degree to which a notion of difference associated with degraded other, based on a discourse and ideology of positively charged whiteness and negatively debased blackness, begins to impinge upon your consciousness. It hits most young black brothers and sisters around 4 years old. And they raise the question, Mom, Dad, why do some white folk hate me? Isn't that irrational? Absolutely right. The beginnings of the black encounter with the absurd. The sheer capriciousness of appealing to skin pigmentation and hair texture, and hips and lips and noses as a benchmark for humanity or lack thereof. How veteran-like. Meaning what? Meaning that this deep psychological and existential state of living a life as if one is a problem in a space shaped by a civilization predicated so much on white supremacist ideology and sensibility is not just a problem for those people who feel as if they are viewed as a problem. It's a problem for the country. It's a problem for the modern world. That race is not a ghettoized issue, a marginal affair. It's not even confined simply to chocolate cities. It sits at the very center and core of what it means to be an inhabitant of the 20th century. Dubois understood that as a black freedom fighter, that his destiny was linked to the destiny of ordinary brothers and sisters around the world across color. Because the black freedom struggle is a version of the radical democratic tradition that believes that ordinary people ought to live lives of decency and dignity. That believes that there's epic significance shot through the lives of ordinary people. To put it in the language of a brother who used to play organ in my church, the Shiloh Baptist Church, we knew him as Sylvester. He's known to the world for the genius that he is. His name is Sly Stone. He wrote a song called Everyday People. The rest of the development picked it up called People Every Day. Same point. Namely, there's a sense of the sublime, the grandeur of the tragic, and the problematic shot through the lives of everyday people. See, the Greeks didn't believe that. They thought everyday people's lives were confined to the comic and the idyllic. Tragedy was reserved for elites. You recall? Egyptians didn't believe that either. Everyday people just built the pyramids. The pharaoh would be inside. Elizabethan English folk didn't believe it either. Even the great Shakespeare reserves his tragedy for who? The well-to-do. But I'm talking about everyday folk who ought to be empowered, and they're empowered best when they have a say in the fundamental decision-making processes in those institutions that guide and regulate their lives.
Who own these words? America. Who is America? You and me. We are America. To the enemy who had conquered us from without, we say no. To the enemy who would divide and conquer us from within, we say no. Freedom, brotherhood, democracy. To all the enemies of these great words, we say no.
This is the history of a human heart. He's talking about Alexander Cromwell. He begins with human beings. In some ways, that's revolutionary in American life, to really acknowledge the fundamental humanity of black folk. It's a breakthrough. The tale of a black boy who many long years ago began to struggle with life that he might know the world and know himself. He could be talking about Ice-T. He could be talking about Chuck D. He could be talking about me, a young black boy encountering the absurd, but knowing down the road it's going to have to come to terms with this boiling, this simmering, because one has to deal with how it feels to be a brother. Dubois goes on, 3 temptations he met on those dark dunes that lay gray and dismal before the wonder eyes of the child. The temptation of hate that stood out against the red dawn. The temptation of despair that darkened noonday. This is powerful right now. The board is something else. And the temptation of doubt that ever steals along with twilight. 3 temptations. Hate, despair, doubt. Above all, you must hear of the veils he crossed, the valley of humiliation and the valley of the shadow